Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to welcome back to the show the director of morale for your Chicago Cubs, the man who's leading the charge to get King Sammy back at Wrigley. He's a man who needs little introduction since he's making like his 10th appearance on the podcast. You can follow him on Twitter at Dom_Frederic. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the podcast, Dom Frederic. Fred, how we doing tonight, bud?
Boomy, Zach, thank you again for having me on. I love jumping on with you guys, and let's talk some Sammy and whatever else you want to talk about.
Love it, man. Well, let's start with it, man. You jumped right into it. Sammy, we obviously know this past Sunday, the Long Gone Summer documentary came out on ESPN in their 30 for 30 series. Let's get right into it, man. What letter grade are you given? We talked about, the draft that just happened last week that everybody wants to give letter grades. What letter grade is Dom Fred given to the Long Gone Summer?
I am giving it. I'm gonna give it a. I think I'm a little generous compared to other people. I'm gonna give it a C minus. It wasn't good. C minuses aren't good, but I think it was good enough because it at least told some type of story of what the topic and what the title was about, which was the home run chase in 1998. I mean, it wasn't. As Cubs fans, we were hoping it'd be much more Sammy centric, but we have to take into account that it was Mark McGwire. Granted, the time wasn't split up evenly between the two guys. I felt like Griffey had as much time as Sammy did, but
Yeah.
all in all, C minus, not good. Obviously not great, but and I said it to you earlier, I just wanted Sammy and Sammy's message and Sammy's electricity to get out there in some type of form and fashion because I've said it so many times with you guys. He's been thrown to the wolves, sitting out in the woods, in the outhouse by himself, just literally another castaway where we aren't able to talk to him, aren't able to really, talk about what he did as a Cub. So I'm glad from that standpoint that this even got on the air where we're talking about Sammy because the whole point I've been talking about it for years is to get him back in Wrigley Field, to make him part of the organization again. Like all the other Cubs they parade out there at the Cubs convention and throughout the season to throw first pitches and sing the seventh inning stretch. Sammy was an icon, and this gave this gave the ability for people to see what he was and why he was a king, even though it wasn't very well done and it was kind of like YouTube highlights, but still, at least we're talking about him.
They said
That's a good point.
as much as we don't want to, like, the Cubs fans really didn't like the documentary in a way. This will serve a purpose, hopefully, in getting the movement started back for Sammy Sosa to get back to Wrigley Field. Like you said, it wasn't like he wasn't the main focus of it, but I think in the next month, 2 months here, at least maybe this will put some pressure on the Ricketts to bring Sammy back because I mean this is just it brought a lot of the Cubs fans love for Sammy back. It's been there, but it's just hard because he hasn't been around for so long that you kind of almost just forget it. And this documentary at least brought some of those memories back.
Yeah, it's such a hard sell sometimes to really push the Sammy the Sammy message because like we talked about it last week. You get mixed up during a season, then you have the off-season news, and then you just miss out on like when you can really talk about Sammy and why it's important for Sammy to be back, and it just gets swept under the rug, and which is exactly what the ownership wants. So to have the opportunity again to talk about Sammy, I'm not saying the documentary was good, but at least we're talking about the guy, and we're trying to get him back, and that's the most important thing.
And it kind of proved that without Sammy Sosa, this wasn't much of a. I mean, it was a home run race, but he brought like so much of his personality to it because they showed how boring Mark McGwire was, and he didn't want to do media and this and that. And Sammy just loved all of it, and it just kind of came out in that. That's the nice thing about it too. It came out that I mean, Mark McGwire was there to hit home runs, but he wasn't there for the media. And Sammy Sosa was going to talk to anybody. He was just happy to be there.
Absolutely, and I think. For me personally, I mean, I was young when Sammy was making that home run chase in 1998. I vividly remember more 2003, 2004, obviously, those years. But dude, Sammy was like as electric as Javi was back in the day. I know we talked about it last week, but just hearing some of those the clips, but Sammy was like, God picked me, and he's saying he's the man just right next to Michael Jordan and things like that. I mean, those are great lines that today, if there was Twitter back then, it would be blowing up, and it would be he would be as electric, probably much more electric than Javi is, and Javi is one of the most electric players we've ever seen. I think he's one of the most electric players in the game, the most electric player in the game. But the stuff Sammy was saying was just absolutely incredible. It's just a shame we didn't get more of it, and that's why Sammy needs his own documentary. Hopefully, I mean, this is again what we were talking about last week. You want to get people fired up? Marquee Network, make a fucking Sammy documentary.
Yes.
You're telling you can get all the clips from WGM and Bob Borwall, and I'm telling you, there's got to be clips of him in the locker room with the boombox, wearing cutoff T-shirts, looking absolutely yoked. You can't tell me there isn't footage of that. Him walking around, taking BP. You know what I mean? That's what we want to see as Cubs fans. And you get a few good lines in there, and it's like it would be absolutely amazing. It could really tie in the past that everyone's frustrated about with the Cubs losing WGN to the present of Marquee Network, and be able to tie the past and present together and hopefully move forward, considering there are these roadblocks that we talked about last week that the Ricketts, and again, I support them, but they're setting up these roadblocks along the way and these missteps that people aren't trusting them. Obviously what's going on right now, I mean, that's a massive L, and they need to find a way to connect with the fans better, because right now it's from the ownership, it's not happening at all, and this could be a way to do it.
I couldn't believe they didn't ask Kerry Wood about the boombox. I was waiting for that for a while. There was just something like somebody bring that up. Like that was kind of the questions that I was kind of looking for, something new within that. Like just kind of trying, and also like you were saying with like footage, like some of the footage was like the Chris Bryant jerseys on there. That was kind of weird. Like you'd like to see, like hopefully they'd have older footage, but maybe they couldn't get it. I don't know. I mean, MLB is hard to get that stuff too.
It's out there. They essentially took like all the videos that I was tweeting off of YouTube on the Twitter, and like they just used that in the documentary, and that was their footage, which is too bad. There's got to be more footage out there that really represents and gives a behind the scenes look at what Sammy was like. And again, we need him to have his own documentary. That probably won't happen within a couple of years or so. I hope it does happen. It's not going to be ESPN, but I hope another program, Marquee, something like that, takes on the challenge. And again, they act like Sammy's this boogeyman, but it's 2020, man. People are so over it, and we talked about it last week again, like the hypocrisy where Mark Grace is let back into the organization's arms, and all these other players with these troubled pasts, and the fact that Sammy again is kicked to the curb is unbelievable, and it's such an easy W for the Ricketts family, who again I'm going to keep supporting, but they got to start making some smart, just simply smart moves to get this fan base back on their side. So I feel like that would be incredibly easy just to involve Sammy again.
Yeah, like you said, it's just it'd be so easy right now to just be like, oh, bring him back, and everyone would just kind of almost forget about that you didn't bring him back.
Absolutely.
So, Fred, what was your favorite part of this documentary?
My favorite part was, I mean, it just felt like it was like they did short sprints of Sammy, where it was like home run, home run, home run, home run, home run. Okay, Mark McGwire. My favorite part was probably seeing and again, there weren't a lot of chances to see this, but seeing like Sammy like playing catch with the neon green whatever Harry Carey glasses on.
Yeah, glasses, yeah.
Yeah, some of the goofy things you saw, the press conferences, the line, God picked me and things like that, and the Michael Jordan thing like we talked about. And then when Mark McGwire goes, when I go up to heaven, I hope I meet, I think it was Roger Maris or something like that. And then Sammy was like, what about me? Things like that, these one-liners that were perfect. That's what I like the most. That's not a very exciting answer, but that's what happens when you don't have a very exciting documentary.
Well, like they were even saying before, it's not like they were like great friends off the field or anything. So
Yeah.
like when they came together for those interviews, Sammy just kind of turned it up and made an interview. Like you said, if Mark McGuire was out, even LaRusso was saying like if it wasn't for Sammy, those interviews would be so boring.
Yeah.
Dude, you're so right. And I don't want to go on a tangent, but it's got to be such a bad feeling when these directors and producers like spend all this time. And again, they might have not spent that much time, but to put this thing together and then to get the reviews that they did on this must be absolutely crushing because
Oh,
I feel like no one liked it. No one liked it. I mean, maybe some Cardinals fans did, but like up here and in general, no one liked this thing, and that has to be an absolutely terrible feeling.
yeah, especially like you said with a lot of Cardinals fans, you didn't really hear a lot from them. It almost didn't seem
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
It wasn't much from their perspective because Mark McGuire's been there for. It's not like it's a brought back up. Mark McGuire's probably played on the scoreboard and stuff all the time and stuff like that.
Dude, he's
So
in the Hall of Fame. He's
yeah,
in the Cardinals Hall of Fame.
so it's unlike Sammy that like no one in the Cubs organization, you don't even get to see him at the games. You don't get to see his highlights.
There's so much. And I don't mean to get political or anything what's going on in our country right now, but you talk about some freaking privilege. The fact that Mark McGuire's been let back, you're talking about Mark Grace has gotten let back, and Sammy's got to bleach his freaking skin to feel like he's welcomed again. I mean, it's sad, man. It's sad. Sammy made mistakes, but he's the victim of some things that are much bigger than him, and hopefully that can change.
Absolutely. I think my favorite part was just like remembering how big some of those home runs were, man. Just see, even the one from McGuire and Griffey, and just like how far they used to hit the ball. And like, don't get me wrong, there's still power in the game, you know, even on the Cubs, Rizzo and KB and Hobby just hitting some moonshots. But man, those guys were hitting balls that felt like they were just shot out of a cannon.
Dude, and how about the style and the fashion from the 90s? I mean, the shoes, the cleats, the pants. I know they were all juiced up, but I mean, God, I just love those old school Easton and obviously the Fila cleats. Mark McGuire wore those big Nike cleats with the massive swoosh on it, or swoosh, whatever you call it. Yeah, it was electric. The stuff, I mean, man, the 90s looked absolutely awesome. And again, the documentary wasn't great, but to be able to relive it in some type of way was good enough.
For sure. I when I first watched it, I watched it with Zach, and I was like, after a day, I was like, you know what, this wasn't that good. And now, kind of thinking back on it, just the fact that like we got to go back and see those, and like you said, it was basically a YouTube highlight series, but like it was still kind of cool to relive that. And that I was 7 years old in '98, and so I vaguely remember it. And then just to see kind of the things that, you know, I quote unquote missed out on, you know, other than just watching the Cubs. Like I never watched the Cardinals, you know, but just stuff like that. I do look back a little bit more fond after a couple days and enjoy it. But do you have a least favorite part of the movie? I'll start. I'll give you an easy one. I couldn't stand the guy that caught the home run. The guy who
my God.
That guy's a putz, and he was on TV way too much.
On there? He was on there more than
he was on there
Sosa.
so much.
He was such a putz. He looked like the Hamburglar. the McDonald's hamburger. That's what he looks like. What a putz. Yeah, you're right. That's a perfect way to explain him. I mean, Tony LaRusso was pretty bad. I mean, he was just a dud. What else? Like when they were talking about like Mark McGuire, like with the media, like they got way too in depth with Mark. It wasn't like if you were gonna do this thing. Like I said before, Sammy needs his own documentary. Like, they just dug in way too deep for things about Mark, and I feel like they missed a lot of things as well about Mark. Like, they showed his home runs, but they didn't show this like incredible like excitement all the time from the city. You know what I mean? It was just kind of like him. They were just showing like clips of home runs. They weren't showing like St. Louis kind of is pretty bad. So I guess like nothing was going on outside the stadium. I don't know. It seemed like they were playing in like an empty parking lot and just fans congregated around. And there wasn't this big like, you know, push or you know, the excitement that was going around in Wrigleyville at the time. You know, it didn't seem correlated to St. Louis. I guess that's
Right. They talked about
was.
like how it quote unquote saved baseball at the beginning, right? Coming off the strike. And then they just kind of like forgot to mention like what the numbers in attendance look like
Yeah.
and the TV ratings. And,
Yeah.
they didn't really like get the essence of the home run race. And don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining about seeing all the home runs and, the leaderboards and everything of who's, passing who. But like, if you want to encapsulate that summer really well, you've got to talk about like, what this did for attendance, what this did for TV ratings, and how many millions of people were checking SportsCenter every night and stuff like that.
Yeah, the economy. Why don't you talk about some local bar owners, like restaurant owners, like things like that, make up the atmosphere around each stadium. I felt like that was totally missed. And again, the director, man, that must be a terrible feeling to just flat out swing and miss on so many different aspects. But yeah, there were a lot of bad moments. But while I was disappointed, I'll keep going back to it. I'm just thankful that we're talking about Sammy again and to make that push for him to come back.
Well, speaking of that, like I said, we would like to see Sammy more in the documentary. But how do you think Sammy came off? After it all is done, he did the interview with Scott Van Pelt after. He did the interview the next day with 670 the score. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mean
he's charismatic as hell still today in 2020. I love the guy.
He's absolutely, yeah. I don't mean to, ham it up with Sammy, but I still label him as the victim. I mean, yes, he made mistakes. He's not a perfect person. Yes, he juiced all those things, but to get the backlash that he's gotten by the organization and to be served this sentence of being totally exiled from the organization is absolutely ridiculous. So I think Sammy's handled himself as well as you can. He's, everyone's looking for this apology. Like, he doesn't need to apologize for anything.
What other organization has made a guy apologize, though?
Yeah, it's Ricketts should be the one apologizing. The fact that he has nothing to do with this and has continued this stigma around Sammy Sosa, he's feeding it. He should be the one who has to apologize from keeping it away from the fans, and it's absolutely ridiculous that it's still going on. So Sammy's taken the high road. Sammy has said on so many occasions he wants to be back. He loves Chicago. He loves the team. He loves the organization. How he loved that, the Cubs won in 2016. He was jumping up and down like he was on the team when he was watching it. I mean, he's saying all the right things, and I believe him. It doesn't, what does he have to gain, honestly? What does he have to gain to just come back to Wrigley Field for one day or come back to the Cubs convention? I mean, it's not like he's going to, monetarily gain from this or anything like that. It's just simply, good feelings, good vibes, water under the bridge, you're mending fences. And he's the one who's actually trying to make that happen. He doesn't owe anyone an apology. And I feel like if he did give an apology, it wouldn't be real. And it's not warranted. So Sammy's absolutely in the right here. And I'll say it again. The Ricketts have to start making some good decisions. I'm going to continue to support them. I'm one of the only guys on this freaking app that supports this guy, supports the family. And they've made so many mistakes. I'm going to keep trying to support them, keep trying to see the positive things that they've done. But they got to start making some good decisions to, bring the fan base together. And this would be the number one thing to do.
Oh, for sure.
You were saying with Sammy, though, he doesn't owe anybody anything. And the way he kind of said it in the documentary is I'm good. I'm blessed. I have a good life. Yeah. I got a good job. I mean, he makes good money. He's a millionaire over and over and over and over and over again. Yeah. It kind of seems like he's at peace, and that kind of makes, as much as we want him back in Chicago, it's nice to know that he's not, it's not eating at him or anything, and he's at peace with life.
Absolutely. It doesn't seem like he's struggling at all or that, this is really eating at him. I think he just wants to bring everyone together. He wants to make peace. He wants to mend fences, and he's doing the right thing. And I just don't understand for the life of me why he's being, casted away when he's saying all the right things. He wants to be a part of the team. I mean, again, we went through all the guys last week that they bring back to the Cubs convention. It's absolutely ridiculous. You get, the These guys that played like half a season, they get trotted back and they get a standing ovation. If Sammy came back to the Cubs convention, I mean, it would be absolutely electric. Guys, let's think about this. There's probably going to be baseball this year after the the reports coming out today. But say, whether the season goes well or doesn't go well, how many people are going to go to that Cubs convention in January? And what's the vibe going to be like that? I mean, we still don't have a deal with Comcast. The owners have sabotaged the season, essentially, have totally lowballed the players, done all these type of things to essentially ruin the sport. Who is going to go to the Cubs convention? I mean, come on. I mean, Tom Ricketts got almost booed off the stage when he mentioned Marquee Network. I was there. And the fact that all these things have happened, they got to start making some positive moves because, again, no Comcast, sabotaged the season, didn't pay for anyone the last 2 off seasons, racist emails, racist comments by his governor brother, all these types of things. And, you're just going to keep going as status quo. It's got to change because he's going to get booed off that freaking stadium. And the bigger thing is he hasn't done the what do you call it? The owner the round table with the owners, right? The last 2 seasons.
Yes.
Right? He hasn't talked with the fans. He hasn't answered the questions face to face. It's like, come on, man. Again, we need some better people who are helping him as advisors. So we can start making some better decisions to bring some peace amongst this franchise and the fan base.
Right. And Fred, you're saying it so well, man, because the fact of the matter is like the Ricketts family has done an incredible job since they took over. But there's always, and I don't care what field you're in, what job you do, there's always room, to improve and room to go up. And like you've stated some of the things that they've done, maybe on the negative side, you've got to be able to look those things in the mirror and say, hey, look, I messed up here. I didn't handle this. I did this wrong. And like, keep going forward. Like, you've done a great job over the last, 10, 12 years now with them. But like, you don't want to sour that relationship. And I feel like this would be a very, very, very easy way to get yourself back in some good graces and clean up maybe some of those things that piss people off.
Absolutely. I think, and I know people get frustrated about the players, about Joe Madden, he was the manager, about Theo, making some moves that didn't work out, But I feel the crux of what Cubs fans are frustrated at is Tom Ricketts and the Ricketts family. That is the crux, and there has to be some fences that are mended and some good decisions that we keep talking about. Boomy, you pointed out perfectly that you can't let these relationships go sour. Especially, and we talked about it last week, when your whole basis and the whole thing around this organization is you're fan friendly. This is a community. It's a neighborhood. Like, we're all in this together. And a lot of it hasn't been portrayed that way, and the decisions that have gone on hasn't represented that mantra. So those are things that have to change. Honestly, this documentary should have been more about Tom Ricketts. And that there should have been a whole second half about why he's outcast. Because if Sammy wasn't outcast by the organization, honestly, like, is this documentary worth watching as much? I don't know if it is.
Right.
Because Sammy's become this mythical figure in so many Cubs fans' minds, even in my mind, because he's an outcast, like we talked about. He's been banished away. And we just want to get the opportunity to see more of him and remember him and, celebrate him, honestly, and just be able to, remember those good times. And the fact that he's been casted away, like I said, and like we've said, because of the ownership, that's the story. And I wish it was told even a little bit, and it wasn't at all.
I think you're right, Fred, with saying that without Sammy, this is not a good documentary, because the buzz was pretty much all coming from the Cubs end. There wasn't an end. I didn't really hear any buzz coming from any Cardinal fans, and that's why it was kind of like all these Cub fans are looking for some stuff about Sammy, the questions you'll ask, this and that. And then when it kind of fell flat on Sammy's end with the stuff, it was just like all the buzz from the Cubs fans went negative pretty quickly.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's too bad, but again, we're gonna build this momentum, and the Sammy stuff isn't done. I am not stopping until that man is back in the stadium, and I'm gonna go even harder. I'm gonna go even harder
I
for
love
Sammy
it.
to get back, because it has to happen. I cannot go through a lifetime, and again, I'm a young guy, but I cannot go through a lifetime. There can't be other people, diehard Cubs fans, that still love. I mean, think about these older fans, people in their 60s, 70s,
Mm-hmm.
that were there in the prime of their lives, watching Sammy go through this stuff, taking their kids to the games, watching Sammy bring baseball back, the most exciting thing in the game. Yeah, he cheated, but the fact that those fans that still love Sammy, that still cheer for the guy, that still know his importance, they can't celebrate what Sammy did, that's shameful. And it's too bad it leaves a sour taste in my mouth.
Absolutely. Hey, there was a point in the documentary. Did you feel like it near the end there when they were talking to Sammy about coming back to Wrigley? Do you feel like he kind of sort of admitted to taking something he shouldn't have? There was a point where I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know what he means by that. And obviously, there's obviously language barriers and different way he meant something. But there was a point where I'm like, did he just kind of sort of admit to taking something?
I mean, I think and maybe I'm just generalizing this and I'm just coming to conclusions that I shouldn't, but I feel like everyone's kind of on the same page. Even him, we all know he was using. I mean,
Yeah,
he doesn't want
everybody
to
was.
come out. He doesn't want to come out and say it. Should he just come out and say it? Yes. Is that the move too? Yes. He's already, kind of dug down so far that he's not going to come back up and just totally, spill the beans on what happened. He's but at the same time he doesn't owe us anything. So the fact that all this stuff is still going on, and I'll keep going back to it, the fact that we don't even know why Sammy can't come back in the first place and what he has to apologize for doesn't make sense. So I mean, if he did admit it, fine, but I'm like everyone else pretty sure he took steroids, and if he did, fine, everyone else was taking it.
Yeah,
And the fact that all this, he even said himself there was 106 players that tested positive in whatever report he was referring to. There was definitely so many more players that were doing it, and for Sammy to be the only one that's still singled out. I mean, again, we're not talking Hall of Fame, we're not talking the massive league records, we're just talking about recognition from his own team. The fact that he's been singled out solely, but compared to all these other guys, is absolutely ridiculous. And regardless of whether he admits it or not, the actions that the team and the franchise and the ownership has taken against Sammy is absolutely ludicrous, and it has to change.
Well, I kind of wish they would emphasize a little more is the guys they were also playing against were taking steroids too. The pitchers
the
they were playing against were
pictures.
taking. I mean, they weren't like the only people out there taking steroids. Like it's one of those. Also, what do you think about? They kind of just brought up steroids, and the first thing you saw was Barry Bonds. It was like,
Yeah,
oh,
Yeah,
Barry Bonds was that was his
crazy.
problem.
I mean, you know, that was the game back then. Everyone was doing
Sure.
it.
I mean,
But
it's a
you go,
disgrace that Barry Bonds is not in the Hall of Fame. He's the great. He has to be
yeah,
the great. I mean, his stats are insane. Like, forget steroids. The dude used to get walked with the bases loaded. Like,
Yeah,
I
that's
know.
really what. How does that guy not in the Hall of Fame? Like, that's
See,
insane.
but this is where, and I'm on board with you guys with all this stuff. But my argument and my focus has really nothing to do with the Hall of Fame. Sammy and
Yeah,
I
that's
right.
support
true.
what you
That's
guys are
true.
saying. I agree with you guys, but it's like I'm just dumbfounded by Sammy being exiled by this organization for no real reason, and I'll stand by that, and that will be the talking point for me until that changes, because I feel like we can't go from, and I totally agree with what you're saying, Zach, but I feel like we can't go from Hall of Fame talk. Barry Bonds obviously should be in the Hall of Fame, but for Cubs fans, we can't talk about Hall of Fame until the guy can get let back into the stadium. I mean, we can't put the cart before the horse.
And as of right now, baseball Hall of Fame it's kind of a joke with how they're
Yeah,
going about it and all. Like you said, the whole steroids thing is it's kind of making it hard to do. But like I don't know, like I said, we need as of right now, our focus is get Sammy back to Wrigley
absolutely,
because
that one focus.
That would be electric. I can't even imagine like the video of him walking out of the dugout or wherever, walking out of outfield or wherever they're going to bring him out, and just the crowd. And what I would like to see is a video of Tom Ricketts and the expression he gets on his face when he realizes like just imagine this would have happened 10 years ago, something like that. Like,
hey man, this is the time. I mean, you can always mend fences. You can always put the water under the bridge, and I don't feel like the wounds are so big that they can't be repaired. They can't be stitched back up, which is a good thing. So, again, I hope they act upon what the fans have been talking about, and we can get Sammy back sooner or later. He should be the first. I tweeted it out. Tom should have called Sammy immediately while this was going on, while the documentary was going on, and say, "We need you back ASAP. We need you hitting tanks, taking BP while we're absolutely botching these negotiations as owners. Just have Sammy there hitting absolute tanks 24/7 until we get back on the field. Then he throws the first pitch. He sits behind the dugout, and it's absolutely electric. He carries us to a 60 or 65-0 season, and we win the World Series in 4. It'd be absolutely electric.
Fred, I need to know your thoughts, Fred, on the one single tweet that the Chicago Cubs did about this documentary. Like, that was a little weird to me. Like, why put that one out and that's it? Like, you didn't even talk about the documentary. They just put the video out.
So
it's confusing.
Naturally, I have my mindset is always positive. I'm always trying to see the good things, the good side of things. And when I saw that, I said, okay, maybe this is going to change. Maybe this is some type of turning point. Maybe I'm being way too, hopeful. But I was just thinking that this could be a turning point. Maybe they engaged a little bit more on the topic, and obviously that didn't happen. I don't know what's going on behind closed doors. I don't know who decided to send that tweet out. I don't know what the rules are that the ownership has put in place or the protocols that they put in place for the team, and how they're going to go about Sammy from a media standpoint. I'm just hoping that that's not the only thing that we see from the organization regarding Sammy, and I feel like that's all I can really say about it, because I'm hopeful that things will change and that Sammy will be welcome back. So I don't want to jump the gun and just be, and bash it. Again, I think this comes down to Tom Ricketts. It comes down to the Ricketts family. They need to own up themselves. They need to be able to mend fences themselves. And, they're not in charge of the Twitter accounts. I feel like I don't know this for sure, but I'm assuming there's either some type of protocol put in place for Sammy, or the people are just walking on eggshells because they don't know how to go about it. You see it's kind of different with the Marquee Network. They're run by, they have different people running that account. The people that run the Cubs account and the Marquee account aren't the same. I've kind of noticed that the Marquee account is a little bit more liberal with what they're going to put out. I don't mean politically, but they're more open, and there's much more things they're touching on with the Marquee Network. The Cubs account, the Cubs Twitter account, Instagram account isn't that way. So I know there's different people running those accounts. Maybe the conversation and discussion is happening as we speak, to where we can start to bring Sammy back, like we're all talking about, and welcome him back into the organization and have good things happen again.
Last thing here, I'm just going to say to the Chicago Cubs organization, the owners and everything.
We know they listen to the show.
It's as simple as this. It's as simple as this. Give us a Sammy Sosa day. Bring him back to the convention, and we'll forget it all. Like, we'll just bring it. Just let him come back, and you'll understand how happy Cubs fans will be and everything. Just bring him back. Like, it just doesn't make any sense at this point.
Yeah, bring him back, or just see what the response is. And
it's as simple as that.
See how it goes. I mean, if you really think seeing is believing, see how it is when he walks back up on that stage and he's wearing the 21 jersey. I mean, just think about it. Sammy walking on stage with a 21 jersey. I'm getting goosebumps right now just thinking about it. A 50, 60-year-old Sammy walking on the stage with that 21 jersey. No one should be able to wear that freaking jersey besides that king. And if you see him walking up on that jersey in the Cubs convention in the Sheraton Hotel downtown Chicago, it would be absolutely electric. And Ricketts will see for himself the response that he will get. And then it should be said and done from there. And then you bring him back. You make him Sammy Sosa, the icon that he is, the king that he is. You put his name up on the stadium, things like that. And then we move forward. We win a bunch of championships.
Speaking of moving forward, Fred, one last thing before we let you go. It's looking like the Cubs are going to play hopefully 60 games this year. What's your prediction on the Cubs' record in those 60 games?
We talked about it a little bit last week. It's going to be a sprint. Hey, man, I love our chances. I really do. I love the fact that there's a universal DH. It gives us so many more options.
Yes.
I think, and we talked about Ross already showing that he wants to play the best 9. We have an older pitching staff, obviously, but that means we're going to be it favors them because they're not worn down from the start of the year. They be able to go, whether it be go a little bit longer into games, probably not. It'd probably be more like they're going full speed for those short amount of innings. And, Yu Darvish is going to carry us. Hendricks. Hopefully we get a really good cue. John Lester, things like that. Tyler Chatwood will look great in the spring. So, man, I feel good. I really do. I just want baseball to be back. And, hey, and you know what? I don't know if you guys were going to talk about it, but, I love the momentum the Cubs created from the draft. I thought it was absolutely awesome. You're looking at a guy that second-round pick, Burl Caraway. If I'm saying that correctly, I'm probably not. Dude, he could be in the bullpen this year. That's how good this guy is. And you're talking about an absolutely electric lefty with a.
Was that the kid from Houston Baptist?
Dallas Baptist.
Yeah.
A guy who's got a absolutely electric fastball, a true fastball that's going to sit up in the top of the zone and then has an absolute hammer to carry on, to complement those 2 pitches. He could be in the bullpen once this thing all opens up, and I would love to see it because the Cubs need guys who can throw it. The Cubs need guys who can strike people out. They swing and miss stuff, and I thought Theo did an absolutely great job drafting a Chicago Catholic Leaguer from Hyde Park, from 64th and Dante, Mount Carmel, Chicago Catholic Leaguer. While the Brewers, you're seeing this guy's pretty much a Chippendale TikTok dancer that they drafted out of UCLA. My guy John Savage. I'll have to reach out to him for what he thinks about Garrett Mitchell, but we picked a Chicago Catholic Leaguer and they picked a TikTok star. So
and we picked a kid who throws a baseball 105 miles an hour.
105 in the fourth round, right? In the fourth round, absolutely electric. I love the draft. The draft was absolutely.
The kid from Michigan's nice too. Late in this short draft, I love that pick there too.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything will be told in later years, but I think Ed Howard is going to be a great defensive shortstop. I'm very familiar with him. I've seen him play a bunch since he was a freshman at Mount Carmel. I've seen him play a bunch, probably 8 to 12 times. Really familiar with the kid. Really good player. He can hit. That's probably his worst tool, though. But if he can figure it out on the offensive end, really tough kid, good kid, and hey, he's going to be able to hold down the position. I thought Theo did an absolutely great job. And again, Burl, he could be in the bullpen this year.
That would be insane.
Dropping absolute hammers from the left side.
I like that kid. I thought that, like you said, man, I thought they had a great draft. And I even think about you being up there. Obviously we've never seen that Howard out here in the sticks, but obviously the videos and everything of him, I love the pick, especially like you said, a Chicago kid. I just love that. I obviously hate that it was a shortened draft. I love the MLB draft for some weird reason. But the Cubs did very well. And if they can get one of those kids to be an impact player here in the next couple of years, more power to them. And it just, keeps making the organization better.
Yeah. It kind of had the feel of like an NFL draft in a little bit of a sense. I felt like each pick had so much more weight to it, obviously, since there weren't as many. I don't want to say it's a shame, but there are a ton of kids that aren't getting the opportunities that they should have in past drafts. But, I think it might be good for baseball in a sense because they could promote that draft a little bit more, and it might really value the picks that they're making. You're not going to see these high school picks, where these kids, whatever, they're wasting picks in like the third and fourth round and
Yeah, to
like
take
that.
some former player's kid.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think it was a good thing. It was fun to watch, and I'll like to see how it plays out in the future.
Absolutely. Well, once the season, hopefully, knock on wood here, it gets going, we'll have to get you back on. Fred, thank you so much for joining us tonight on Twitter at Dom_Frederic.
And
Can't thank you enough for coming on, man.
I'm trying to build the Instagram a little bit.
Yes, the Instagram.
I'm not gonna beg for it, but if people go on Instagram more than they do Twitter, I know people enjoy Instagram more than Twitter at times. So I'm posting on there if you want to follow along. Yeah. But thanks again for having me, guys. Zach, Boomy, you guys are the best. Whenever this starts up again, let me know, and we'll get it going as always.
Absolutely, man. We appreciate you jumping on. And his Instagram is the same as his Twitter at Dom_Frederic. Follow him on both. If you haven't done it yet, I don't know what you're doing with your life, but go do it. You got Instagram on your Twitter. Follow them both.
Let's get Sammy Sosa back to Wrigley.
Sammy Sosa back. The king, baby. The king.
Amen. Thanks a lot, Fred.
Thank
you, Fred.